Hey guys, what's up? My name is Michael, and here's some crazy ways you can flip a drum sample you find on Splice, Cymax, or any of those other sample libraries. Let's dive in. So we got the count drum loop right here. We're going to play it without anything on it. And you might think as a producer, wow, the groove is really sick. I don't really want to change it, which is totally fine. You know, sometimes you might find a loop that fits perfect with your project, but sometimes you're like, wow, I really wish I could change or add another fill or just do something different, right? The loop doesn't really change throughout the entire time. There's a couple dynamic switches in here and there, but here's some easy ways to chop it. So let's say, for example, I really like this kick, or I really like this one. This one's probably better. The reason why I say that is because this one actually has a hi-hat built into it. So we'd have to actually nudge it. So what I like doing is I'll take the sample and nudge it and then slightly cut off. So now we have a kick. And now we can use this kick and remake the pattern. If we want, we can change the pattern up. We can take the snare right here, do the exact same method where we turn off the warp mode, nudge this start marker slightly forward, and then copy and paste it so we have drums like this. And then we can nudge the fade so it sounds a little bit more realistic and it cuts off nice. So we're missing hi-hats. So what I like to do is I'll take the hi-hat, turn off the warp mode, and then we'll do pretty much the exact same thing. And it'll sound like this in context with all three. So that's a very easy way to get drum sounds from a loop. The only reason why this really works is because each sound in this loop in particular is separated. Say for example, we had a kick that had a little bit of a cymbal release. Let's see if we can find one right here. These are actually all sounding good, but I think maybe this one. Like this one right here. So a little bit iffy. So what we can do is go back in, create a new track, turn off the warp mode, and nudge this start time a little bit ahead. Press the warp mode again, and then switch it to beats mode, and then go into this transient section, and then change it to this top arrow. So if we play it back, and then we nudge this down, we can kind of remove a little bit of that tail and get a little bit of a punchier sound. So that's a real easy way to adjust the curve of the ADSR of your sounds. It's a great way to add a little bit more transient punch. So we can do the exact same thing with our kicks. Turn it into beats mode, turn the warped to transients, and then set it here. So instead of it being boomy, a little bit tighter. And then just a step further, if we add a drum bus to everything, we're still getting that punch from those elements without having to sacrifice, cutting and shaving everything away. So that's a very easy way to make sure that we're getting out some punchiness from our drums from a loop. So that's one way I like using drum sounds. Sometimes like there'll be a cool sound in a loop and I'm like, wow, I really like that one particular track. I will take it, rip it, and then either repitch it or change it into beats mode and just kind of play around with it to get something cool. Nice. So then the next option is just using the loop by itself. So we're going to drag it down here. And instead of it just repeating like that the entire time, I'm actually going to nudge it forward so we're more on the grid, just so it's a little bit easier to do these chops. So play the gag again. It's like, okay, what if I have a double snare somewhere? So it's like this. So the cut's actually pretty clean, but I like doing a little bit of a fade just to make sure it's a little bit cleaner to avoid any sort of weird pops or clicks. So this is a cool way to just you can kind of resample the drums in a way. Another thing we could do is add some ghost hits. So if we throw this one, we turn it way, way down and then just nudge it here and then strengthen this out. So kind of a cool way to just add an extra bit of ooh. Kind of flip it. Can even almond break it if we really wanted to. But it's a cool way to just add in a little bit more movement to some of the sounds. If you don't like using it all on one track, I do recommend just making a group and then just nudging the sounds down here. So if we were to add these extra hits, we can just have them in a separate track right here. which makes it easier too if we want to do more ghost notes, right? If we wanted to like do like a snare roll, we could set these right here, but we can set them a lot quieter, right? And play it back. So now we're not having to go through each clip and adjust the volume. We can just have it on one track and have a global volume to adjust to make that sound a little bit cleaner, and gives us the ability to add in, you know, different sounding rolls while maintaining it all in one group. So that's a fun way to work too. I would recommend starting off with this technique first, actually, because it gives you the chance to keep the core of the loop alive while just incorporating just a little bit more interesting stuff, which is always fun. And to add on to this, and kind of like a pro thing, but it's to add reverses. So if we play the drum loop again, I'll leave the cuts in here for now, but this is in context. I'd love to add some sort of reverse, right? So we can take this kick, place it right here, and we're going to press the button R on our keyboard. This will just reverse it. Depends on the version of Ableton you're using, but that's all you have to do. And now it's a reverse kick sample. So now if we play it in context, it just adds that extra bit of like kind of tension and release, bringing us back to that original start of the loop. We can do the exact same thing with the snare if we want to. I'm actually going to just remove and not take the very beginning of it. I just want this tail, and using that as a way to transition is always fun. So let's play it now in context with a reverse snare. It just sounds different, you know, it adds that extra bit of like push and pull, which is really nice. And it's very easy to do. You can also just take the entire sample and just press R, but you do run the risk of it not lining up exactly. I do recommend with that, cut the transient out and then just nudge the vocal, or sorry, nudge the sound, and then just fade it. That's really all you have to do. Yeah, so it's a cool way to add a little more movement, a little bit more cadence to your tracks. Another pro tip is when you are dealing with drums, if we go back to the original loop, I'm gonna set this to beats mode again, which is usually the stock warping setting. And I'm gonna drop the BPM all the way down. So the original beat was in 79 beats per minute for the sample. We're gonna drop it down to 44 and see how it sounds. So we can already hear there's some weird fluttering happening, like especially when this kick is coming in, right? It sounds like it's like shaking a little bit. The reason why that's happening is because of the warp mode we're in. So if we go to beats mode, it tends to be good with transient material, but it does run the risk of just making it a little bit wonky and kind of adding like a little bit of a weird chorus / phaser effect to the whole loop. So to avoid that, we can set it to the start and stop time on transients and then just drop this down, which makes it sound a little bit cleaner, because it's just playing the front half of each drum hit. The other option is setting it to tones mode, which is kind of like an interesting granulated mode, which could be cool if you want kind of like a more IDM grungy kind of sound. Next we got texture. Should be cool for a fill, to be honest. Like if we were to resample this, like kind of a cool sound. And then finally, repitch. Repitch, I would personally recommend for most drums because it's the best sounding algorithm for maintaining those transients if you make a huge tempo change, right? So if we go to like 44 is even slow, let's go to like 20, right? Which might be too slow. Let's go maybe a little bit higher, right? Let's go to the extreme, right? Let's go to 126. And if we turn off and turn to beats mode, it's going to maintain the same pitch, but it's now going to be, you know, a little bit fluttery, a little bit lost. If we go to repitch, we're maintaining all those transients a lot nicer and it sounds a little bit more real. So I like using repitch for a lot of the non-tonal sounds I will use. Drum loops are really good. Percussion loops are really nice. And just using it as a way to make it sound more real and a little bit more organic without introducing a lot of the warping issues, right? So that's always what we want to avoid whenever we are transposing or using samples. You don't want to be overdoing it or going some crazy switch unless you're adding some sort of band-aid or some sort of type of, you know, what are you doing to really, you know, mask the audio damage you're going to be causing. And then finally, you have complex and complex pro mode. These are going to be the standards across most sound altering. Like if you're using any sort of tonal instruments, like if we had like a, we'll just look up like another tonal loop. That just look like a synth loop. Sure, that one is a little crazy. We'll just turn it way down. So if I was gonna pitch this down, you know, if I was gonna change the key and go down like 8 semitones or 7 semitones, it would sound like this. You can tell it sounds a little weird, but if we turn into complex mode, it will smooth out the sound just a little bit nicer. There's less grittiness to it, and it gives it a little bit more of a realer, you know, smoothed out feel. So I would recommend Complex and Complex Pro mode 100% for any sort of tonal samples, but for drums, stick with beats or stick with repitch is really what I recommend to get a cleaner signal overall. And finally, we have one other thing that I didn't talk about, but this is one if you really like diving into, you know, if you want to just keep the loop the way it is, great. But this is a fun, kind of cool, diddly-dandly way to add in some more movement. So if we go to the envelope section, so if we go to clip and we go to gain, this is going to be controlling the volume of each clip. So if we play it again at a normal BPM, we can actually drop some of these notes down. So if we go here, we're going to drop a couple of these hits. So if we play it again, different bounce, right? We can even drop this even lower and then just kind of cool, have a interesting. Cool, instantly changes the swinging and groove of the song, even though we're just doing volume automation. We're not doing anything else. So that is one way to have a little bit of fun with it, is just going to the clip and adjusting the gain. This is just physically changing the gain of each section of the track. The reason why we can do large, easy moments like this is because we're using the pen tool right here, which you just have to press B for. Press B, and it turns it on. And then anywhere you click, it'll add wherever you click the amount based on the grid. So if we change the grid and we change it to like here, now we get even more control. So what I like doing too sometimes is if I'm really digging how something sounds, I'm going to just delete all this for now. I will turn off the grid. So you can press Command 4 and this will turn off the grid so that anything you do right in is going to be smooth now. So if we wanted to like do like some weird thing right here, almost like drawing, right? It's like, so cool way to add a little bit more of a unique human element, if you will call it, to this section. You can actually automate this too. Like if you want to apply this to a, if you have like a knob controller, if you have like a keyboard that has MIDI control, you can map this to that. Better just going to MIDI and then going to clip, gain, you can adjust it and have a little bit of fun with it. It'll get a more human approach to it, which is always cool. And the next thing is transposition. So transposition is a really fun, easy to use tool that allows you to repitch different sections of the beat. So similar before, we can start a start and end time and then adjust the pitch so that this hit is going to go down 12 semitones, which is an octave, and it's going to go back up to that snare. So it's kind of like a record stop. If we're going to nudge the start time a little bit so that it starts right at the end of this kick. So it sounds a little bit more clean versus doing this, which also sounds cool, to be honest. Like it's just another way to add just like, ooh, like what is that? Like it's different, you know, just sounds a little bit cool. So that's what I like using pitch bending for. You can do like, you know, the dramatic record stop if you want to go to the very end of the clip and go down, you know, 2 octaves, if we want to call it. And you can adjust the curve by just holding the option button and then clicking on the middle, and then you can do this. Cool. You can also do up an octave. Like you don't have to go down. You have up to 4 octaves up or down. So if we go up, it's going to sound like this. So cool. You know, there's interesting ways to add just like extra bits of fluff and extra bits of flavor. Like if we go, you know, I'm just going to write in some random automation, to be totally honest, and just see what we can come up with. Like maybe it might be bad, it might be good. You don't know. Like that's a little too crazy. And we're still getting kind of that like push and pull feel from these pitch down sections right here. So that is really like, you know, play around with it. You don't have to be stuck to just using the loop as it is. There are ways, especially with Ableton, to just kind of splice it up and just have different things happening here and there. So consider that. Next time you do find a cool loop on Splice, it doesn't matter what genre, feel free to try to play around with some of the pitch bending, play around with some of the, you know, reversing of nodes, resampling, just to get something just a little bit different, because as producers, like, our job is to create a vibe, and ideally, if we can, we want to avoid just using cookie cutter loops all the time. It is helpful to just add that extra bit of like, oh, I did something to it. You know, I changed it. I changed the key, or I changed the sound. And this is a very easy non-plugin way to do that. There are, you know, I'll make another video actually about different plugins you can throw on your drum grooves to just make them sound different. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you have any questions about Ableton, please write a comment below. I'm going to be making a lot more videos about my production process. So if that sounds cool to you, drop a comment, follow me, man, give me a subscribe. But thank you guys so much. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.